You're listening to Real Facts on Real Estate with Sean Patrick Maloney.
This sounds good.
Welcome to episode 21, Positivity in Sales. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Maloney. Thanks for joining me this week. I want to talk to you guys about a subject that's really important to me, and that's positivity in sales. All too often in any type of sales job, we constantly are speculating whether something will happen or not, and we immediately go towards the negative bias of the world. We're all brought up by our parents being told, watch out for this, watch out for that. They're trying to look out for our best interests. They're trying to keep us safe, and they're constantly warning us about the worst case scenario. We learn when we see someone coming down the street to question whether it's safe or not to talk to them. We learn whether to trust other people in sales. We learn that when someone gives you a check that it might not be as safe as cash. We're taught all the time about avoiding pitfalls, which leads us to have this negative bias in our life where we don't trust anybody. And unfortunately in sales, sometimes we project that through our emotions when dealing with a client. So I want to talk to you about the power of positivity and how it can get you more sales, more closings, and a better overall relationship with your clients. So a lot of you, I'm sure, have read the books on the power of thought. One of the most famous ones is The Secret. Now, don't get me wrong. Am I a believer that you can just dream something up and it's going to happen? No, it's a bunch of bullshit. And I'm not here to tell you how to live or anything, but you're not just going to think to yourself, geez, I'd love to have a new sports car and it's going to show up. There is some action that needs to happen behind it. But what I am here to tell you today is when you go through things in life with a negative bias and you treat things that way, it's easy for you to project out those feelings. So let's go back to talk about some real life situations. So one of the most common ones nowadays is, as we all know, there's a lot of scammers online. Scammers and schemers exist everywhere, but online, it's easy to hide behind a computer. It's easy to tell people you're going to do something and then not have it happen. Lately, I've actually seen an insurgence of this happening in our industry in real estate where we have people either make an offer or people duplicate a listing and say it's for rent and try to get people to pay them deposits to take on the rental, and then they don't actually rent them the place. So the reason I'm telling you this is just you do have to be aware and you have to always make sure you do your due diligence, but I don't tell you this to make your negative bias higher. When we have these online approaches where somebody's approaching you online, you need to make sure you give it the same amount of attention as you would a normal sale. I just listened to the audiobook Sell It Like Serhant, written by Ryan Serhant of $1 Million Listing New York. In that, he actually talks about a client he calls Client X. And during that talk, he talks about the fact that there was a guy who met him online that actually reached out, and his original anticipation and thoughts of the email was, it's fake, and he didn't want to work with it. But he said, that day I had a little extra time, so I replied back to the email. Long story short, in the long run, the guy ended up buying over $250 million worth of property with him in time, ended up being a really wealthy guy, and he took him through a heck of a run, did lots of different interesting journeys and trips and travels, as well as sales with him. But the reality was, if he had let his negative bias move in, he would have never ended up closing this transaction. So what I'm saying is when you meet these people online, you need to treat them with the same respect that you treat a normal client. You need to put them through the normal processes that you would go through with a normal client. This applies for all industries in real estate. When you meet these people online, you want to work on either getting them on the phone or working through the emails, but go through the processes. Make sure they have a correct pre-approval. Make sure they have correct proof of funding. Make sure that they can send you the real records that you need. When you're in certain industries, you may have to even ask for their license, all these different things. If then they start giving you trouble, or if the documents they produce aren't exactly what you're looking for, then you need to actually start raising some red flags. But why, just because someone meets you online, do you suddenly think there's something wrong? A lot of times, the main reason that people do this is we're used to our own pay class. So it doesn't matter what pay class you're in. When somebody approaches you online and they have far more money than you and they say, I'm willing to spend millions or hundreds of thousands that you never thought was possible, especially if they use the words cash, you immediately assume they must be a Nigerian prince that wants me to break out the money from some safe hold where I only got to give him $5,000 for $5 million, but anyways, so, one of the things is you got to think to yourself, I can't treat this person with disrespect. I don't know them. And we now live in a digital era. Yes, there are these people pulling games out there, but you could end up breaking up your own sale Or you could end up with a bad reputation because, let's be honest, online reviews are real and they exist. And if you're giving people trouble when they're trying to come at you on an online type setting, you could end up with a negative review from an honest and real buyer. So let's not let that actually come in. The next one down is, let's talk about with the positivity and everything. Let's talk about when you actually have a sale going. One of the things that we like to do is we like to inject our own emotions and thoughts into the process. This is the worst thing we can do as salespeople. Yes, we're a fiduciary for the person. Yes, we watch out for their best interests. But there's absolutely no reason we need to warn them about everything that goes wrong. We're not their mom and dad. We're not that person that has to bring up everything negative in life. Like when you tell your mom you got some new idea coming up and she's like, "But careful, honey, you could go broke." That's their job. That's not our job. When a client comes at us and they want to buy near train tracks, do we need to say to them, "Are you aware the train tracks are down the street?" No. If they told you, "I don't want to live near train tracks," then certainly bring it up. But otherwise, if they want to live near the train tracks, for all you know, the last time they owned a house, they could have lived in an urban setting where they had a subway or commuter rail right next to their window that used to shake the glasses inside their cabinets. But now they think that train track that's 100 yards away is far away. So when you inject the negative emotion and you say, "Are you sure you want to live this close to the train tracks?" they say to themselves, "Jeez, I'm not sure that I want to live this close to the train tracks," even though they had before. And the only reason that has been even brought up is because you were the one who had to inject that emotion into the transaction. Quite commonly what I do when I'm training my agents and salespeople is I explain to them kind of a theory that I have about going down to Lowe's or Home Depot and looking at the paint wall. When you look at the paint wall in any store, you can see thousands of colors. And one of the things you're going to do immediately in your head is you're going to go, "I like that one and I hate that other one." And when you do that, you're immediately going to think, what kind of person would really paint their walls that color? And one person's looking at taupe and the other person is looking at chartreuse. And we're all thinking the same thing but opposite. Why would a person possibly be that plain? Or why would a person possibly be that flamboyant? Like, why would they want that? But the reality is these companies like Lowe's and Home Depot, they wouldn't even carry that in stock if thousands of people weren't buying it. So that means that you're right to thousands of people and you're wrong to thousands of people, which should teach you something about emotion. Keep them to yourself, because the homes that we're working on, the homes that we're working on purchasing, the homes that we're working on insuring, all the different jobs we do in real estate, that's not our home. So it's not our business. And by injecting your negative emotion, by telling them that you don't like the paint color or you don't like the proximity to the power lines, or don't you know the power lines make you sick? Have you ever seen an actual study that proves any of that to be true? No. There's not a single one that proves any of that to be true, and all you're doing is creating old wives' tales, creating negative emotions, and killing your own sales, worrying about saving them from everything. Again, I talk to my agents quite commonly about this on all levels. When we go into a house with a potential sales lead, and we're going in there and we're looking around the house, we're there to warn them about major items. You know, if we notice that there's a huge problem, or if the inspector notices that there's a massive problem, like rotten beams or things. But when we're doing things like telling them that, "I don't know if I'd move forward with this because there's a broken window," they're spending $500,000. What does it matter that there's a $150 broken window? Should they ask for it? Possibly. But should you screw up a deal over it? Definitely not. Should you make them walk away from it by injecting your negative emotions? Or, this is an even better one. Say we went through that same home inspection. The home inspector comes back with the fact sheet. It's about 70 pages long. And, you know, I've even been told by one home inspector one time, "I'm here to tell you everything that's wrong with the home." I think he said it the best, even though I couldn't stand the guy and I thought it was the worst idea ever. And I thought his negative emotion basically almost killed my deal. But when I go over that inspection report with my client, first and foremost, I go over it on my own. I check out everything that's going on that inspection report. And I say to myself, what is in this inspection report that would drastically hurt my client? What is there that would really make it so that this person would be either financially inept to be able to fix it, or it would cause hectic problems to their budgets in life and everything like that? Those are the items that I'm going to bring up. What most agents do, they go through the thing and they highlight everything that's wrong. And then they take that thing, they highlight it, they send it over to their client in an email, and they say, "Let's talk." Let me ask you a question. You ever get anything with a bunch of highlighting in it that all has bad news with the words "let's talk"? That's going to totally blow a deal up. Now the person thinks that they have the right to argue every single little factor. And again, it's just your negative emotion. For all you know, the person may have been, say, maybe the window needs to be replaced. What if they were going to put a door there? They were originally going to take that window out and install a door there, but now you've injected the idea that they should ask the seller for a new window. Again, it's your own negative bias thinking, I'm going to protect them from everything bad. Be more positive about things. Say to them, hey, after reviewing the inspection report, I wanted to know what your feelings were. And then when they tell you their feelings, then you can talk with them about the reality of how you can negotiate with it. If they're being unrealistic, maybe you need to say you're being unrealistic. But don't ever answer for the seller either. When somebody says, this is what I want, you don't say, oh, that's easy. This is the reverse of negative, but it's actually negative. When you answer for the seller and you say, oh, that's going to be no problem, you've created a negative situation, because if the seller says no, then the seller looks like a jerk, which is a jerk that you created because you answered for them that any reasonable person would do it. And when the seller says no and they come off as unreasonable, don't wonder why. You actually injected that negative emotion, because instead of saying, that seems like a reasonable request, let me see what goes on with it. No, why not just say, hey, I hear what you're saying, and I will do my best to get them to agree with what you're asking here. Let me see what happens. Let me get back to you. Don't ever use the word a reasonable person. As soon as you do that, you've created an assumption, and with that assumption can come the negativity. So let's continue on and talk even further about positivity in sales. Pre-even making the sale, you meet with people, you're about to meet with them, and you're talking about the different reasons to choose your brokerage. This is a place where negativity is commonly used. You see it in sales videos, you see it in advertisements where they say, use us because the other guy stinks. He's the worst. He does everything terrible, and we do it right. Why do you need to do that? Why not talk about what you do great? And when they reference to other people, when the clients ask you about other people, say, I'm not sure what they're doing over there, but I know what I'm doing over here, and I know the positive value that I can create for you. Even if you know the other guy's terrible at his job, or the other girl doesn't know what she's doing, what does that matter? How does that build you up as a salesperson? When you're building yourself up on negative suppositions, you're going to end up in a situation where you don't realize, but negative words stick out so much higher than positive words do. Just like always, when you see online reviews, it's a lot more common to see negative comments on reviews than it is to see positive comments, because negative comments have the strongest effect on the human mind and people remember them. A lot of times even we'll have a situation where there's 4 or 5 positives and 1 negative review, and guess what? When you're running through the reviews, the first one you click on, which is it? Is it the 5-star or is it the 1-star? It's the 1-star. You want to know what went wrong, because that's people. That's why the news is so effective. That's why the news is always showing you bad news, and quite commonly, your neighborhood might seem like the worst place ever because the news doesn't say, like, guess what good happened this weekend in this neighborhood. No, they tell you everything bad. So remember, when you're talking about prospecting with a client, you want to use what's called positive suppositions, which is where you compare yourself to them, where you say, people like you and I, we understand the power of what I'm doing here. And in doing so, we know that working together will have positive results. You don't want to say, you and I understand the dangers involved in working with somebody else, and that there's pitfalls, and that the other guy, he might have you buy the wrong house because he's just trying to get a sale, and he's just all about commissions, and they don't care who you are or what's going to happen. It doesn't even matter if you're bad home inspection. You're not going to get it with them because they don't care. Well, now, from the beginning, you've made the person think of bad home inspection, commission-greedy agents, and all that stuff. So guess what? As soon as you're going to sit down and talk about commissions, you just told me the other guy's commission-greedy, and you asked for 5%. Now take 4. Why won't you take 4? You just told me the other guy's greedy. Oh, what? You take the same exact percentage as him? So these are things where we don't realize, but we create our own pitfalls through that negative action. Instead of talking about that, you can talk about things like, the reason you should work for me is because I really study my local marketplaces, and I have all these great online tools. And in working with me, not only am I going to show you the homes on the MLS, but I'm also going to show you off-market homes. We have the power of a great search engine. We have a great website. The overall commission structure that we have makes sure that I properly get paid so that I can show you everything and anything within the industry. These are the types of things where instead of leading with that negative bias first, you're leading with the positive, which leads people to want to do business with you. If there's anybody that always has a lot of friends, it's the person that's always smiling. And in any sales tactic, they always teach you, even when on the phone, be smiling. What's the reason for this? People like positivity, and people want their lives to be better. When they see someone who has a better life than they think that they have, they gravitate towards them. All the time, by accident, we chase people away by being a negative person. So the next time you're talking with someone about sales and you're talking about how you're going to gain their business and what you're going to do for them, just think a little bit further about how can I put a positive spin on it? What do I do well? How can I be more happy about it? And then at the same exact time, in the back of your head, be thinking to yourself, I've got this one. Because you won't believe what it'll do for the outside demeanor of your body when you think, I've got this one. There is nothing more powerful than a confident salesperson. So make sure to do that. The other thing you can do that a lot of people don't do often enough is positive affirmations. Every day when you get up and you want to think about yourself, you want to think about something where you look in the mirror and you say to yourself, I am a sales beast, or I'm a sales animal, or I'm going to get this sale today. When you get a phone call and you have a new lead, instead of hanging up and thinking, geez, I hope this works out, think, I'm about to close another deal. I just saw a speaker talk at Thrive named Charlie Jubilee, and one of the things he used as his positive affirmation was, I'm on a winning streak. That's what he told himself every time he had a little tiny positive thing happen. He said, one of the first winning streaks he thought of was when he would walk into Starbucks and he bought a coffee for $2.40 and it perked him up for the day. He said, what else perks me up for $2.40? I'm on a winning streak. And he said, that would be the way that I started every single day to think, geez, I just got second in line. I'm on a winning streak because I'm not third in line. Instead of thinking, why am I third in line? He said, I'm not fourth in line. And you always have to be thinking that way. And I know it sounds funny to people, but start thinking about small, accomplishable, manageable goals and always think about the little wins that you have. And shortly enough, you'll be sure to see that you'll be winning more and more often. Start putting a lot more positivity in your life and watch what it does for your sales. Watch what it does for the people around you, and I'm sure you'll be happy. Thanks for joining me this week. Make sure to think positive, make sure to get more sales, and make sure to be on a winning streak. I'll talk to you next week. Make sure if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to DM me, PM me, give me a phone call, text me, email me, anything that works. Subscribe to our podcast. If you don't already, make sure to go on Facebook and join our group called Real Facts on Real Estate. And I look forward to talking to you there as well. Thanks for listening this week and have a great day.